And welcome back to another episode of Fireside Chat with Grand Design RV. I'm here with my trusty co-host, Jeff. How you doing today?
I don't know how trusty I am, but I am your co-host, and I am here, and I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great as well, and let me correct you on that. You are trustworthy. Come on. Yes, you're very trustworthy.
I appreciate it, man.
No problem. I appreciate you.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate you.
Okay. Well, we appreciate each other.
We do.
Okay.
All right. Good. Well, that's the show, guys.
That's
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Just kidding.
How's it going, man? What's on your mind?
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it, since we've been in here?
Yeah, it's been a little bit. Things have been crazy. And we've been out there. I think show season is almost officially over. If not, we're into spring now, and so less shows, more. Now we get out there and train our dealers and train ourselves, all the things really.
Yeah, like one phase to the next in the year
it
of
does.
our RV world.
That's right. That's right. It doesn't stop.
Well, today I know we've got a pretty interesting, different type of topic. We're going to talk about some things what we call golden threads.
Yeah, the golden threads, and I know there's people that are listening to this that if you work for a dealership out there, because I know we get both retail customers, end users, and people who sell our products as well listening to this, you might have heard, or you should have heard of the golden threads. If you're an end user or a retail customer, you might not have heard that before. It's not really a term that we use in the brochures or the literature or anything like that. But it is a pretty important topic, and it's one of those things. Like you just imagine, put yourself in this position. You go and you work at a dealership, and there's all these RVs, and you have to remember all this stuff about them, and not just Grand Design. There's other brands too. It's really a matter of being able to organize that product information in a way that's cohesive and coherent, and that you can remember. And that's what the golden threads are.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking, maybe we could take a second. You kind of did already hit on. Let's define, why golden thread? What does that really mean?
Yeah.
The definite. Why did we come up with that terminology?
Yeah. So that terminology goes back to the earlier days of Grand Design, and we were. There's so many things that we do as a company that is, either we started doing it, no one else was doing it, or we did it better, or, just continuous product development, things like that. And there's different things. And we found that, because the way we were set up, Grand Design is somewhat unique in that when we started with a luxury fifth wheel. I know some other companies have come along that have done that since then. But before 2012, when Grand Design started, kind of the MO was you start with a lower price, a little more simple, a little higher volume, and then you build up from there. We took the complete opposite approach. We started with the Solitude, and then we came out with other brands all the way down, like Reflection, Momentum, Imagine, and eventually Transcend as well. But what we found is that when we came up with a new product, we had so many things that really, really worked really well in the Solitude. We wanted to continue that even to the lower price point lines. And it was really difficult to decide, hey, what are we going to take out? What are we going to do? And it's not just, a bigger fridge or a more powerful air conditioner. There's things that are features that are, of course, that very difficult to take out, but there are some things you just can't take out, like things like a warranty, for example. Our warranty is the same from top to bottom, and it always has been. So we decided that there's so many things throughout our product lines that are the same, and they're really good things. It's not like, there are some things that are the same, like the certain electrical connectors that we use are the same. But, unless you're an electrical engineer or just really interested in how you connect wires together, that's not something that's going to come up in conversation, right?
Right.
But there are some things that were really, really important, really hard-hitting things that moved the needle, and they were consistent all the way through.
Yeah, I was going to say the keyword I was thinking of was consistency.
The consistency. In fact, Golden Threads is just part of the name. The full name are the Golden Threads of Consistency.
There you go.
That was it. And, it's, I don't know who coined that. I think it was one of our GMs, Peter, but I don't know for sure. But I looked this up before the show. The Oxford Advanced Learner's Dictionary, Tom, defines a golden thread as an idea or feature that is present in all parts of something, holds it together, and gives it value.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I mean, that's the Oxford
And I couldn't have
Advanced.
said it.
Yeah, right.
Good. Yeah.
But yeah, so what they are is they're a list of things, and there's probably there's way more than what we talk about. Like I said, you
Sure.
can get down to the little,
Yeah.
the small things. But when we do sales trainings, for example, at dealerships, I usually focus on 10 things, and those 10 things are divided up into 2 different categories. And for those of you out there, who own a Grand Design or are looking at Grand Design, just know, I mean, like these things are things that apply to your units as well and apply to new units out on the lot. There are a few things product-wise that may have been added within the last year or two that may not apply to everybody. But a lot of these things are universal almost from the very beginning of Grand Design. And so these are things that when we go to a dealership and we're training, or when people come here and we're training, it just allows them to get a really good grasp on who we are as a company, the story behind Grand Design, and why we do what we do.
Okay.
Because, there's a lot of people, we were just holding a training yesterday and for new hires and, people newer to the industry. And Tom, you can imagine this. I mean, RVs, if you've never sold RVs before or camped before, it can be pretty, it's a lot of information.
It is. Yeah, it can be overwhelming.
It can. And so what we found is a lot of people gravitate to like the Imagine, because it's one of those things.
Right.
It's a good price point, good features, and a lot of people can see themselves camping in one.
Yeah.
But maybe they can't see themselves camping in a Momentum. I always say that, that 14.5-foot empty space really intimidates people, right? If it was filled with stuff, it wouldn't be as intimidating, but no, it's empty, so it's intimidating. A lot of people can't see themselves in a Momentum. They're maybe not into power sports, not into, motorcycles, anything like that. So they kind of avoid it.
Right. But the beauty to me about that is the fact that they may start with an Imagine, let's say, to get a taste, get their feet wet,
right?
Get out of that kind of like we call it the freshman, of being an RVer, right?
Yeah.
And then they start seeing, and they maybe start seeing other people with the bigger fifth wheels or with the toy haulers, like the things they're doing when they're camping, like, and they start gravitating. So it's almost an evolution of their mind.
Right.
And someday they might be ready for that toy hauler.
Well, exactly. So, and on the retail side, that's exactly what happens. In fact, there's a lot of people who never thought, I've talked to several of them, never thought they would own a toy hauler.
Right, yeah.
And now they do.
Yeah.
And it happens on the dealer sales side as well. The folks, a lot of times they go and maybe they get really good at selling Imagine, but then second someone comes in and they want to see a toy hauler, man, it gets a little bit harder, right? They maybe don't want, maybe give it to someone else that has a little more experience. That's where the golden threads come in.
All right.
Because if you're really, really good at selling an Imagine and you know the things and you can help the customers with that, then you're already almost halfway there with the Momentum, because these things are consistent throughout the lines.
It's a great way of saying it, looking at it.
Yeah. And so it makes it easy. And it's not just from a standpoint of training. I think there's a lot of value here. And we separate these into 2 things. There are 2 categories of golden threads.
Okay.
One of them are Grand Design RV commitments. And what I mean by that is these are things that apply to all Grand Designs that we build. And I guess I should put a little bit of a caveat on this. We're talking towables right now. The motorized is a separate thing, so they'll have a little bit different thing, and it's a little different, especially because they have to build on chassis and things like that from Ford and Sprinter and all the things like that. So we're just talking about the towables right now.
Yeah.
But the commitments are things that you can not hold, you can't touch them, you can't see them, you can't feel them, but they are there. And what I mean by that, for example, we do a 100% PDI inspection, a 300 plus point PDI inspection.
Right.
PDI stands for pre-delivery inspection.
Yep.
And before Grand Design, this was kind of the realm of the dealership. The dealership would do a PDI after the customer picked out the unit and getting ready to buy it. There were only a few companies out there that did, manufacturers that is, that did any sort of pre-delivery inspection before they shipped it to the dealer.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there was one that I know of back in 2012, and they were only doing 10% of their units. When we came out, we were doing 100%. And it's easy to say that when you're only, at first building, 1 or 2 a week. But as it gets more and more and more, that becomes a little more difficult to do. We've maintained that commitment up till the present day. So that's the commitment. You can't see the PDI, you can't hold the PDI, but you got to know about it, especially if you're working at a dealership and talking to customers and they want to know about things like this.
Yeah.
Things like the warranty. You can't hold a warranty. You can't feel. Now you can read it, right?
Yeah.
But when you're just going up to a fifth wheel or a travel trailer, you can't see it. You know, you might see our sticker on there, but the 135 transferable warranty that we've talked about here on the show before, that is something that is that's a golden thread. It goes through all of our towable products. So it's amazing. You can spend $150,000 on a Momentum, or for our Canadian listeners, that's like 200 something now, or you can spend $20,000 on a Transcend, and you get the same warranty.
Right.
I mean, that's unheard of.
That's a big point.
It is.
Mean, it's got to be a big selling point.
It is. Yeah. I call it value density. Because you start, if you get these golden threads, they're all on like the Solitudes, the Momentums, but if you can get them for the same price as a Transcend, that's very dense value. I mean, you're getting a lot for your money, and not to say that you're not at the upper levels, but boy, when you get a Imagine or a Transcend and you're getting all of the stuff that we'll talk about, I think you'll see the value is there.
Sure.
And so the commitments are that one side of things, and there's some more we will talk about in future shows. I think this should be a series.
I think so.
We'll talk about golden threads, and then because there's only so much time you want to devote to each one, and maybe it's not a full 20, 30, 40 minutes, but little bite-sized things we'll throw out there for people.
Yeah, so I think, the way we look at this, the Golden Series will be kind of like today's an introduction, kind of set it up, talk about what our golden threads, the theory behind them, which you've done, the three, the big points about our golden threads, and then we'll release little nuggets, we'll call them.
Ooh, little golden nuggets.
Golden
I like
nuggets of more shorter podcasts for a time while here, just to get to talk about the golden threads.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me finish by saying, so the one side you have the Grand Design commitments, things you can't see, smell, taste, touch, things like that. Then on the other side, we have our product initiatives, and these are the things that you absolutely can see, hold, feel. Now, granted, going up to a Grand Design on the lot, you may need a Sawzall to get to some of this stuff. It might not be readily apparent, but if you come to the factory, you can certainly see it without destroying
it. Might be the better way.
Yes. Yeah, so things like the way we seal the units, on the outside to keep out the elements, things like that. Things like, our walkable roofs. Every Grand Design has a fully walkable roof. So, not many people know that. Things like that. The way we laminate units. Now, there's a little bit of a hitch there in that Transcend is not laminated, but everything else that's laminated is going to follow these same standards, and we can talk about that too. But I'm excited because we can get into some of this stuff, and it's kind of if you think about it, it's kind of like a factory tour without the tour. We're talking about the things that we talk about while we're in the factories and things like that. And this is the same stuff. I think a lot of times people out there, maybe end users, will think, I wish I could talk to the factory about this and that and this and that, as far as like getting information about the products, because all I can do right now is call my dealer. Well, this is the same stuff we talk to dealers about. There's no like hidden thing where like, oh, this is what we tell the dealers and this is what we tell the retail customers. This is all the same stuff.
Right.
Yeah. All the same stuff. So yeah, I think it'll be a good thing. I think it'll be really nice to go through these things. And I know at the end of these podcasts, we typically have like a sign off and all this. Yeah. But this is really the first step. I don't think we need to sign off at all, Tom. I think we could just say, we'll see you next time. And when we see you, we'll talk more about the golden threads. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds good to me.
All right. Turn off the recorder.